I can still see him. Okay. Sure. Are we live?
Well, we are almost live. We're live on Zoom, and I think that we are live on pretty much everywhere as well. We are live on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and that's it.
Oh, wow, because you're on Restream, aren't you? And that does Twitch
Yeah,
as well.
we are using Restream, so we are targeting 14-year-olds on Twitch as well.
Perfect. Dudes. I don't even know if you say dudes. Shit,
I don't know. Is it still a thing to say dudes? If you're anyway, guys, so we're here for second time today with the best bird company out there in the SaaS industry, WordPigeon. And today we're talking about rethinking WordPress blogging, change the way you produce your content and save time. Now, Deepak sent me notes before this meeting, and it's a really long block of text, but I jumped through it really quickly, and it will be quite interesting. So we'll be sharing, of course, actionable tips and tricks on how you can really change the way you write your content, so it will come more natural and easier for you, and you will be able to produce more. Content. So Deepak, Max, hi again.
Hello. Hello, Jacob. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. I've also now shared with you the presentation that contains the blocks of text. I think that for the audience, what you can't see is in the Zoom chat that we've got, Jacob.
No, they actually cannot see it.
And he just saw this. It was like, why have you sent me an essay?
Really long. And by the way, guys, thanks a lot for sitting together today, because that's quite unique to see, right?
Yeah, but for us it is as well, because as you were asking, guys, you probably all work remotely, so it's no surprise that Max and I work together remotely, but we have seen each other more during the course of our PitchGround launch than we've seen each other during the entire time of development, and we live 3 minutes away from each other.
So we are bringing founders together, literally.
Exactly. PitchGround dating. There you go.
I love it. All right. I see people are joining, guys. It's amazing to see you here again for the second time. And please, if you have any questions about SEO, WordPigeon, Deepak, Max, ask us in the comments and we'll be answering them throughout the webinar. And again, in the launch webinar as well. So Deepak, Max, I think that we can jump right into the topic. What do you think?
Yeah. I'm excited. Brilliant. Let's do it.
All right, let's start with the first point of the long block of text, which is...
Well, let me share my screen, and I'll make it a little bit more interactive for these guys. Here we go. Perfect.
By the way, I'll be sharing again the presentation. So guys, you don't need to take a screenshots, because I will share the source file with you.
Brilliant. Okay, fantastic. So now this is perfect. How do I make Jacob's beautiful face a little bit bigger on Zoom before I tell everybody?
I can go closer if you want.
Oh, hang on, no, that's gone wrong. You know, I prefer you closer. In fact, I just want to see. There you go. I'm looking for just eyeball, Jacob. Nothing else.
Right.
You're like, guys. As Jacob said, welcome. My name's Deepak. If you're just joining, this is my partner, Max, in life. And WordPigeon. Max is like, you gotta tell him it's a joke. So welcome to basically this presentation. Look, we're going to be talking about changing the way that you produce content. I know that for many of you, content, you're like, okay, it's content. It's not a new thing. But what I invite you and welcome you to think about as we go through this presentation is this really, really critical thing, which is ultimately thinking about changing, now that we move into, I guess, 2020, the way that you produce content. And what I'm going to run you through is 12 things, right? We're going to go through it relatively quickly, because I also want you to ask questions. Jacob will probably tell me. Jacob, feel free to interrupt.
Okay.
If someone has a question, just interrupt me right away.
Will do.
Really is about you guys, and how hopefully through this webinar we can produce value. So what I want to talk about is 5 things first of all. So there's 5 things that I want to talk about, which are the rules of blogging. Now let me preface this by saying I'm an SEO guy. I think you'll be quite surprised about what I consider to be the rules of blogging. And then we'll go on to talk about some, even for me, really, really interesting statistics that some of them I knew, but a couple I didn't. Jacob, via the block of text, already has the keys to the kingdom, but I trust him to not be direct messaging you as to what the rules of blogging are. So
well,
guys,
so far I received only about 60 DMs requesting all the informations.
Oh, there you go, guys. So brilliant. Look, so the first thing is, it's simple to say, but often hard to execute. You've got to really write like you talk. Okay. So what I mean by that is, there's a couple of people that do it relatively well. We spoke about them a little bit before, but ultimately writing like you talk, I think is really a critical component to creating and driving engagement. So you can very easily see articles that are written for SEO. Okay, articles that are written for SEO. An example of an article written for SEO would be something like, content is changing in 2020. The important thing that you must understand about writing content in 2020 is the way that people consume content has changed. It is now boring as fuck. Like it's like you see through it, you hear it, and it isn't a reflection of how anyone talks. And if you think about how we communicate with your Facebook messages, with your WhatsApp messages, no one even writes like that anymore. So writing like you talk is something, for those of you that are worried, will create longevity. Google, of course, is getting ever smarter every day. The stuff that you see on WhatsApp, whether it's the lols or the emojis and the GIFs, you see it indexed in search, you see it indexed basically everywhere now. I do think that you will set yourself up for a longer term competitive advantage if you do actually write like you talk. Writing like you talk drives engagement. Writing otherwise produces that type of stuff that you can read and you just know someone's looked at an SEO piece of content and it will work, but for a very limited time. So that's the first thing.
So how do you do it? How do you write like you talk? Exactly. Like, is there some trick, shortcut, anything you can share?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a good question, guys. I think that some of the tricks to consider are, and number one, scroll through your WhatsApp history and actually take a look at the way that people engage with you and that you engage with people, and compare it to the way that you produce content, and look at the distinctions and find a happy medium. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is that using inline humor. So the whole concept of inside jokes, when you make a comment that only certain people will understand, that's a really powerful way to bring the audience into something that you're actually communicating about. So for me, looking at your WhatsApp history, looking at or thinking about inside jokes, and inside jokes, guys, they can be colloquial, they can relate to your language, they can be national, they can relate to stereotypes. So a colloquial stereotypes would be, we might say, use your loaf in the UK. So use your loaf is Cockney rhyming slang for use your loaf, use your head, because it's loaf of bread head. Okay, that's an example of colloquial slang. National inside jokes would be, don't do a Boris. Brexit actually isn't done. Okay, as an example, if we're talking about Boris Johnson, we're talking about Brexit, right? Making it an international joke would be calling it Brexit with an S.
What did you say? Brexit?
Yeah, Brexit.
Brexit. Brexit.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully, guys, that gives you some insight as to practical ways that you can think about creating subtext and creating humor and creating engagement within the actual content that you produce. By, again, and we go back to the last webinar, reference popular literature. Make it relatable to a broader audience than just your academic field. And the way that you do that is by putting in things that people can easily understand, right? It's used everywhere. It's analogies, it's storytelling. You have to infuse analogies into your content to stop it from being dry, because otherwise people just get bored. Okay, and the irony is, don't write for marketers, because you shouldn't, the people that you communicate with are more often than not the people that are gonna, you know, that you end up doing business with, or you want to do business with, ironically. Okay, so you know, Max and I run a plugin, a software. We want to produce content for bloggers, right? So with that in mind, bloggers write about absolutely everything, and bloggers that just write about software is a very singular and small piece of our market. Bloggers write about absolutely anything and everything. They'll write about, obviously, birds. So we could write a great symposium upon birds and make it really funny and colloquial and talk about Brexit and Brexit and this and that. So I hope that answers your question, Jacob.
Yep, it
Brilliant.
does.
Let's keep going. Oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
Oh no, I just didn't realise that arrow keys worked. I tried it earlier and it didn't work. It must have magic fingers.
I do have magic. I do have magic fingers. So this is the other thing, guys. Ship it or it doesn't count. I stole this from a blog, actually. I don't remember whose blog it was, but I like this. So the idea is, with ship it or it doesn't count, is that get into the habit of publishing. So don't be. We're going to come to this. We spoke about this, right? Don't write for SEO. So it's a point there. I'm not doing this in the order, but the whole point about these things are write like you talk. And given the fact that we're all prolific, so we are all actually massively prolific publishers, but most of us just publish privately. Think about that. Most of you spend all of your day writing on WhatsApp. You spend most of your day writing on Facebook, direct messages. You spend most of your day talking about stuff that probably could be quite public.
I'm not really sure if I should publish the stuff I'm writing in Instagram DMs.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I mean, some Tinder conversation might be fun.
Yeah. So Jacob highlights a really good point. I guess that what I want to say with this in mind is that a lot of people find shipping it as a big obstacle. They're like, Deepak, writing is hard. The mindset, writing takes time. And I just put it to you that when you think about content, realize that you produce content every day. You're producing probably about 20,000 words a day, probably 50,000 words a day, just by being you. So get into the mindset of ultimately publishing a small piece of that. And I'm not just talking about your WhatsApp DMs. I'm also talking about your actual formal emails that you write, the emails that you write to clients. So write less, and let's go to this. This is what it relates to. So stop going to meetings and writing emails for meetings and being in meetings and talking about content. Just start shipping content.
Right.
Okay, guys. I can honestly tell you from a personal perspective, the less meetings that I tend to have, the more successful I become. Honestly, you know, Max and I are doing this. It's our first software. It's my first software venture together, even though I run an SEO agency. It's Max's first software venture together. We've met, as we said, we've met more as a consequence of doing these, and I'm glad that we're doing these webinars. Of course, they're important, but guys, stop going to the meetings. Stop thinking that you need to spend an hour and a half discussing strategy, but instead just get into the space of executing stuff. And I guess I call it a rule for blogging, but it's also a rule of life. You produce as a person more than 20,000 words a day, I'm sure, 10,000 across your WhatsApp messages, across your voice notes, across your Instagram, across your emails. Get into the habit of thinking that, right, I'm going to start publishing or proportioning 20% of the content that I communicate, but I'm going to put it into actual words. And I know that you're worried because it still seems overwhelming. And I want to go to the final point of what I consider to be the rules of blogging, okay? For all of you guys that are watching content, which is train yourself to write a lot, okay? So Jacob, for those who weren't watching on the last webinar, so Deepak, show the audience what you do when you wake up at 4:30 every day.
That is crazy.
Writing isn't hard. You just got to train yourself. It's really, for me, I find it quite frustrating. I wrote 80,000 words in 45 days. No, that's a lie. I probably wrote 70,000 words in 45 days. I started off by writing about 400 to 500 words a day. All I committed to was that every day, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wake up and I'm going to fucking write. And I'm going to do that every day. And that one element changed everything for me. I trained myself to write a lot, and I only did it for 45 days. I've stopped doing it now, but in those 45 days, I produced 70,000 words of content. And then
you were sending this content in emails, right?
Yeah, so the content is in newsletters. Each newsletter is about 1,400 words. There's 54 newsletters now, so someone who's a great Max can probably do the math. Find out what 54 times 1,500 is.
Don't use calculator. You're a developer. You need to do it.
No, to be honest with you, my mental arithmetic is absolutely awful. I am terrible. I'm good at like algebra and that kind of stuff, but when it comes to adding up, taking away, multiplying, I'm useless, to be honest.
When you think about, you know, the sheer act of training and focus and the things that carry like huge value over time, that content that I produced and the content that you go and produce will live with me in 10 years from now. The meeting that I go to talk about a particular strategy will live and die with that meeting. So if we all engage in the act of training yourself to write a lot, we can just all become amazing producers of content. And it's not hard. It's hard to think about it, but doing it isn't that hard. You just sit and you figure it out, and you write, and you train yourself to write a lot. And I think that this is the next part of the challenge for me, and I invite all of the audience to consider this as well. So you're watching this via Restream, that should be number 6, of course, but I'm going to start blogging live. So my next
challenge, so you would be streaming what you're writing.
My next challenge is I'm going to write another 70,000 words for my blog now, but I'm going to do it live every morning.
That's amazing. I love the idea.
I'm going to go on at 6 a.m. maybe every day for just an hour or an hour and a half, and I'm going to blog live. I'm going to just be like, guys, I'm going live on my blog. Tune in. Don't tune in if you don't want to, but this is my commitment to myself that I'm going to go on a 30-day live blogging journey, and that is going to enable me to train myself to write a lot. That's going to give me a reason to stop going to meetings, and that's going to force me to ship it, because if I don't ship it, it doesn't count because I'm doing it live, and therefore I will naturally, given the time constraints, probably write like I talk. And as an accidental consequence, I probably will write for SEO, if you know what I mean. You produce 70,000 words in 30 to 60 days, whatever it will end up being. There's always ways to support yourself becoming a huge content producer.
Right.
Okay? We obviously have WordPigeon, which is what we're here to ultimately talk about, but forget WordPigeon, forget like everything that anyone tells you about how hard it is to write content, or it's hard to write amazing content. You just need to train yourself and your content will get better and better. So for everyone who's wondering, and we'll go on now to talk about the statistics and the commercial relevance. We'll take a commercial break. We'll take a commercial break. I think that when you engage in that process, I've got better every day that I've written. And my process, in case you guys are wondering, is I've got 2 people on my team. I've got a content writer, and I've got a editor and a image finder. So what happens is that I produce content, and then Melanie goes and corrects all of the English in my content where I've clearly made errors. And then Lydia goes and finds images that relate to things I talk about in my content, and also adds italics, bullet points, underlines, and they basically follow me a day behind every day. And that's how I improve the content as I go along. And now that I've finished it, I'm actually going back through the content just once to read them all and add and change some bits. And then Lydia and Melanie are going through and doing it again. And that's the entire process. It's taken me 60 days. But if you think about that, guys, about the whole journey of producing amazing content, it's been 1 to 2 hours a day over 60 days. And I'll produce probably in the end 80,000 words that will be with me for the next probably 20 years. Because why wouldn't it? It's 80,000 words. It's a newsletter. So that is really what blogging can do for you. And that is why, in my opinion, it's not that hard. We should all consider doing it. And a way to do it is, as I said to you, Max, I'm going to blog live starting Monday.
Can you share if it's not too internal, like some data about your newsletter, like how many people open these emails and so on, or at least percentages.
Absolutely. So at the moment, to be honest with you, I think only around 200 people have signed up. I have not been promoting it anywhere. I just put a pop-up on my site and I told some friends. What I have been doing is using it as a pass. So here's the interesting part. I have generated already about £4,000 from the newsletter by accident. Now,
wow.
I've also generated 2 clients for SEO from the newsletter by accident. Okay, so
how these accident happened?
Sure. So, guys, I produce a newsletter about my life. I just talk about random stuff, right? The thesis is that we're all influencers, and that people are interested in Jacob, are interested in Max, are interested in me just because they're interested in you as an individual. Therefore, they'll follow things that are important to your journey, which is why I say blog, etc. So I speak about my algorithmic trading and the successes that I've had with a broker that I use. By accident, 5 people said, Deepak, I really love your blog about your trader. Can you introduce me to your trader? I introduced them to the trader, and a friend of mine has now invested £15,000, of which I share a small commission every month from the trades that he makes. Accident. But I've just discovered that there's a passive income model from people reading. 2 people asked to be introduced to my property sourcer because they said, oh, Deepak, can you introduce me to your property sourcer? And I said, yeah, great. She gives me a £200 commission anytime I make an introduction. My friends know that there's a commission, but they don't care because they're like, look, this sounds really great. A couple of people said, I really like the model of your agency. By the way, can we have a chat? I said, sure, talk to my head of sales. So what I can tell you, the open rate's probably about 78%. And I've got friends that have told me that, dude, I read your blog every day. I had a guy who messaged me to say, Deepak, why did you start sending it out once every 3 days instead of once every day? And I said, oh, well, because I thought it was too much. He said, well, actually, I got into the habit of opening and reading your content every day. He said, I've stopped doing it as much now. So now we're switching it back. So that's my early data, and I'm yet to scale it. In probably March, I'm going to start putting maybe £500 a month just into building people into that funnel. And I think that it's going to be probably one of the biggest drivers of ROI for me, because, and I talk about WordPigeon. There's a whole section dedicated to WordPigeon. I'll be probably talking about the PitchGround launch, you know, in somewhere within it now, because I'll be like, this is how a PitchGround launch went, etc. Or I'll talk about it when I blog live. So the whole ethos behind blogging and what's possible for people is that people don't really think, and even I'm, you know, being pleasantly surprised at how powerful it can become, and that it's such a great thing to say, oh, you know, always, you know, people say, Jacob,
I mean, yeah. It all boils down to producing content. It can be written content, of course, like in your case, it works amazing. But I mean, consistency and producing value in any form of content will just bring results in some way.
Yeah, no, I look, I think you're right. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I know that you're doing it with your podcast, and I think that, you know, there's so much value. And of course, then you can, as you know, guys, you can, you know, cross-purpose it. You can turn a podcast into written, and you should. You absolutely should. So
will you help me?
Pardon?
Will you help me? Will you write it for me?
I will absolutely not write it for you. So guys, I'm so sorry.
We're just shooting shit now here. So let's continue on the topic. Let's statistic.
Guys, so look, for you that are a lot more commercially ROI led, and I'm going to just run through some pretty cool statistics about what blogging can do. So if you're an SEO guy, websites or blogs tend to get 4 times basically more index pages. So for you guys that are maybe e-commerce sites with 100+ pages, we're an SEO agency and we've got 100+ pages somehow, which is a bit silly. But we, you know, you more content equals to more blog content tends to equal, you know, more pages being indexed. That's the first thing. It's pretty cool. Second thing is that, you know, add images. You get more views with images. I don't think this is a surprise, but the surprise for me was the statistic. You basically just get double the amount of images. And again, build-in process. It all begins just with blogging or writing. Train yourself to write, get into the habit of it. But then, you know, for me, Lydia is my savior, because I'm like, Lydia, can you just go through and add all images as we go along? If you can't find an image, just add a comment saying image should be here, Deepak, and then add a comment, or keep it in a doc somewhere. And then one day when I've got an hour and a half, I'll go through and I'll add images to everything, but batch it. But yeah, blogs with images do really well. This is probably not a surprise to people, but you know about the sales process, that people have a couple of touch points before, you know, they engage in buying your stuff. A lot like these webinars, that you need to build consumer trust, and that does happen with content. It's an excellent way to do it. Much like the newsletter, right? You know, the references that I've just made all come after like people have read 3 or 4,000 words of my content and they've committed to it. And for them, then, you know, my friend who invested interestingly into the trading, £15,000, I've not spoken to him in 10 years. And I didn't even speak to him during this process. He said, Deepak, can you introduce me to your broker? I said, yeah, sure. I did an email intro. And then 3 weeks later, my broker said, your friend put in. And I said, oh, wow, okay, that was great. So guys, it's true. Like, it works. I promise you it works. This is the other element of it. Blogs, that people that post daily get 5 times more traffic compared to those who don't. So number 9 is why I want to blog live for 30 days. I may extend it to 60 days. I'll see what happens, but I want to see after 90 days what happens to my blog. I don't think I'll get 5x growth, but then equally, I didn't think that I'd make any money in the way that I did from the newsletter, Jacob. So let's see what happens. Let's definitely see what happens. And to wrap it up, guys, for link building, it's great. More blogs, more content, more links. And then this is about all of you people that are, I mean, for most of us, there's an element of B2C-ness in it, that we're, you know, B2C for SaaS companies and B2B, I think, has become very like, it's not a clear line anymore. There's lots of businesses that function or are effectively 1 or 2 people. WordPigeon, you know, has a couple of other people involved, but we're effectively 2 core people at the business. So I would say that, you know, if you are definitely in the e-commerce space or otherwise, you know, blogging that many times per month is something you should definitely try for 6 months. See what happens, see what it does, you know. And this is the final thing. I wanted to add this because, you know, I run an SEO agency, and I can definitely say that from all of our acquisition channels, in terms of who are our best customers, the people that come in and find us through our content, 10 times better, 10 times easier to close, and we get better returns and make more money effectively from the leads that we generate as a business. And it's something that we're doing, you know, at WordPigeon. You know, Melanie's going to be writing 10 to 15,000 words this weekend for our blog. So guys, to summarize, the first half was really about getting into the habit of producing content. You are a publisher. We're all publishers. It's just about recognizing that if you get into the habit of publicly producing some of this content, and by the way, I did not do this. I'm 33. I did not do this through my 20s. I really, really wish I had committed to producing regular content. I think it's the biggest singular thing over the course of anyone's career, 20, 40, 50 years, that you, as a statistic show, you will wear many hats, you will work in many businesses, you will run many companies, but you will never change your name. So get into the habit of producing content under your own name. It's going to be the one thing that will stick, the one thing that will really stick. And, you know, it just carries so many benefits, Jacob. So that's my thoughts on why and what you should do with content and how you should think about changing content in 2020.
Amazing. So I think we'll go through it faster again, but I have a question. I think most of the people who are watching right now are pretty much sold on the idea that they should be blogging, they should be producing content.
Yeah.
But look, you're quite disciplined guy. You do a lot of uncomfortable things. So it's quite easier for you to get into the new habit of writing, right? So I think this will be maybe a little bit more softer advice, but what would you recommend to people who want to start writing, but maybe they're afraid that they won't stick to it?
I think that progress is the most important thing. Guys, it's a great question. I mean, I think that everything is relative. That all that matters is that you do slightly better than you did yesterday. And by yesterday, it doesn't have to mean the reference to the last 24 hours. Yesterday can be, have you written more this quarter than you did last quarter? Okay. So I think that, and there's things that all of us find really hard. Now, at the moment, one of the things I'm trying to give up is the amount of grapes that I eat. I'll eat like 2 bags.
Do you have a weird grape addiction?
Yeah, dude. Like I eat 2 bags of grapes a day, and then my partner Daniela, she just basically said, "You realize you're just like consuming like loads of sugar every day." And I was like,
no, it's fruit. It's healthy.
Exactly. I was like, oh, 2 bags, and I've gone from 2 bags to like half a bag, and it's really painful, and I keep coming backwards and forwards. But that's an example of something that I struggle with. Okay, so guys, struggles are relative, and if you think that there's no way I can do that, that's completely cool. All you need to do is be in your stretch zone, Jacob. That's all that needed. It's just about for me taking a step. So if it feels a little bit uncomfortable, great. You don't need to do any more. So practically, if that means just writing 10 words a day or 100, like commit to 100 words a day, and then just work on that.
I have a really good example when it comes to when you feel that you're setting up right goals. I was on a seminar with Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street, and he was talking about how to set right goals and how to be constantly out of the comfort zone. And he asked audience, raise your hand as high as you can, right? So we all raised our hand as high as we can, and then he asked us, and raise it a little bit higher now. And everybody raised it a little bit higher. And he asked, why you raise it a little bit higher when I ask you that you should raise it as high as you can for the first time?
Yeah.
Because it's not comfortable doing it for the first time. And that's exactly how you should set your goals. It should be this little stretch, which is a little outside the comfort zone.
I like that. That's a good idea. I like it a lot. Dude, you're completely right. As good advice, and
yeah.
Let's do the rest.
No, I mean, if you'll be speaking somewhere, you should try it. It's really cool to see how many people will then.
Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Jordan, if you're watching.
Jordan Belfort.
Wolf of Wall Street. Okay. Yeah. Don't worry, we'll talk about it later.
Anyway, we're just not talking a lot about SEO now. But anyway, let's read again what exactly you should be doing to start producing better content. And these things are, I think, things that you can apply almost immediately, at least the first one, because I'm writing quite a lot of content in the posts every day, but I don't write like I talk, which is actually the first advice which you gave us, guys. So you should be writing like you're talking. So just check your messages, check the language you're using, and get inspired, and just start producing content in an easy way, just how you would be talking to a friend over a beer.
Absolutely, I think so. I think that writing like you talk is such a big thing, and write like you talk and start publishing. Start publishing. Like you have. Imagine having a blog that you commit. I am excited by the idea of eventually having a blog that's got like 1 million words on it, or when you actually break it down and over a period of 2 years, as an example, cool. You're like, post 200 words a day. They're like, oh, Deepak, 200 words isn't great for SEO, but almost all of us are the same. When you start building a habit and you feel good and you get a small result, you tend to do more of it. So the stretch zone will keep stretching. Always. Yes. Without a doubt.
Progress equals happiness.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's part of human nature, or Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization, or something like that, whatever it's called.
Yep.
But we as people desire progress. So that's why bite-sized goals make so much sense. I'm sure you've done it with how you built WordPigeon. Like, Deepak, I can't think about that right now. All I've got in my head is this cooing pigeon that Jacob really wants. I've got to build that. Got to build that.
Yeah, well, when I was building WordPigeon, I just basically had small goals. Okay, by the end of this week, I need to achieve this. By the end of this week, and it's just amazing how it's all come together over the 6 months. Now I'm standing in the middle of this cathedral, you know, that I just built this bit that week, this bit that week, and you know, it's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm you know, it's why I'm excited about your podcast as well, dude, that you're building and seeing where it takes you, man. It's the cathedral, such a good night. I'm stealing that as well.
It's mine, you can't have it.
Oh, damn.
On a side note, guys, who are watching, we are actually still thinking with Max and Deepak how to infuse a little bit of bird humor into WordPigeon website. So once you buy a deal, which will go live next week, you might be lucky and find a little pigeon cooing on the website somewhere. Is that right, Max?
I'm thinking about what Easter eggs I can incorporate into the site. There'll probably be an Easter egg which will lead to a puzzle. Oh, hang on, sorry, that was a secret. There will be no Easter eggs and no puzzles.
That was brilliant. Oh, Jacob, you're completely right, dude. Yeah, we love, as Max was saying before, guys. It's very obvious that I'm passionate about content. It's why we built a plugin for bloggers. You know, we built it to, it's been built to solve my problem, and thankfully I've got, you know, an amazing CTO, co-founder, friend who has, you know, decided to join me on this journey and, you know, make me a wonderful cup of tea with love.
Yeah.
And guys, just in case, with love.
I don't have my cup here with Bugs Bunny. I cannot compete with it. Oh, Angry Pigeon.
Yeah, and we don't want any. If we have a problem with our software, we don't want any
Angry Birds.
Angry Birds. We will block you from our software, and we will double charge you via Stripe, and then we will shut down our account.
Yeah, we only want happy birds, don't we?
We only want happy birds. Yeah. Happy or hot.
This would be very weird without the context.
That's so true.
Anyway, let's continue. So write like you talk, ship it or it doesn't count. If you don't publish it, well, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that it's how the world is, right? It's what you live and die for when it comes to the things that matter. You know, what was published, what was said, and I think that, you know, I'm also hoping that Max becomes more awakened to blogging.
Yeah, you know what, blogging's something I want to do, and I really want to do it, and I know Deepak wants me to do it. I want to do it myself, but it's just, you know, finding the time.
There's always time. You're gonna build. It's gonna be a small little hut, and then it will become a cathedral, right? When you just train yourself to write a lot. 30 minutes a day.
But you're writing different type of content, right?
That's okay. I'm not going to read it, but that's fine. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. You know what? When we first started this company, I actually did start every day. I would write what I did, what I was up to, what the challenges were. It was just like maybe like 50 words per day.
Can you imagine, guys? PitchGrounders, you can probably all appreciate this. When you, for those of you who are watching, if you have launched anything really, 3 a.m. night terrors, 4:30 a.m. bathroom, 5:15 feeling amazing about life and thinking that everything is beautiful.
Roller coaster.
Depressed again.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it's like. I literally only just started sleeping again about 3 weeks ago. Pretty much the first 6 weeks I didn't sleep.
And I think that that's one of the points that you know, in reference to talking about content, guys, that you know, writing content like you talk and writing engaging content, like these are the elements I think that people, I would hope that you kind of get behind. You know, that Max and I are trying to make this work, and the way that you communicate your passion for your projects through whatever medium you prefer is hugely important. And you know, that's why all of those statistics are, for me, you know, very telling and very accurate, and absolutely right that, you know, companies that with, you know, who have blogs gets, you know, amazing returns, because fundamentally, as much as we're in the software game, everyone will never stop being in the relationship game. And our success will be determined by what relationship do we build with you, and the way that we channel that relationship is going to be through, in the first instance, content. Okay.
Yes.
It's engaging content for the many different types of reader, for the guys who scan, skim, heavily engage, all three of them. You need to have content at some level for all of them. You know, Seth Godin, an incredibly prolific publisher. Okay, he's written God knows how many books now. You're probably already familiar with his name if you're watching. The Purple Cow, Permission Marketing. There's a lot of things that he's written, but also at the same time, if you read his daily blog, it's like 100 words or less. It's 100 words or less, and he has something like 1 million people subscribed or 1 million visitors a month or something to that effect, but big numbers he posts, right? And he breaks seemingly all the laws of blogging, okay? Because he produces content that's 100 words or less. But how has he done that? He did that through producing engaging content over decades, millions of words. And when you do all of that, then you can write your own rules. Then you can do what you want, okay? To get to the place of happiness, you have to, build your cathedral. You have to go through the night terrors and do all of those things. And for me, I'm nervous about blogging live. I just made this up on this platform because I thought, for me, Jacob, what's my next stretch zone? What can I do to hold myself even more accountable? Now I want to just see if I can write live, because I read someone else who wrote a 50,000 word book by blogging live, and people could leave comments. He had a Google Doc open with people having comment access, and said, look, I'm going to blog live. Feel free to add comments for questions that you've got, and I'll improve it in real time as I write. And I thought it was such an incredible idea. And he said, hey, that was how I made about $10,000 in pre-sales for my book, because I continued writing it, and people said, yeah, I want to buy it for the way that it turns out, etc. So I think that, the stretch zone and finding a mechanism to encourage yourself to produce content will lead you to getting that kind of engagement, because we're in the engagement game, right? WordPigeon, PitchGround, it's all about eyeballs, engagement, and then you can drive retention. Attention
is new currency.
Yeah, exactly. Because for most of us, the OP is no one cares. That's kind of the opera. What is OP? What is it's the acronym, but what is it actually?
Modus.
MO. Is it modus operandi?
The way you operate.
Yeah, modus operandi. It's MO. Yeah. It's not OP. Yeah. I think I just made OP up, dude.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what it meant, actually.
Yeah. So
guys, we have a question here from anonymous attendee.
Okay.
So anonymous attendee is asking, do you have a full course for blogging which covers planning, finding topics from A to Z?
I have one, actually, that's an internal course for my content writers, but I can give it to the guy if he wants it. So yes, I do. The answer is yes. All he needs to do is sign up to my newsletter.
Deepak, what do you think that we would give it as a bonus for our LTD buyers? Do you think that would be possible?
You know what? Okay, guys, I can produce a series of bonuses. So if for the LTD buyers who stack, I will produce an actual course about how to write compelling.
I'm going to write here a note to ask in PitchGround which SEO content that they would be most interested in.
So if people can ask me a course, anonymous attendee, a course. So if you tell me what kind of content that you want me to produce, and we can definitely build one. These strategies that I've just discussed, guys. It's what it helped me get 2 million views a week on Quora. I was for a while the fastest ever growing writer on Quora, and I built an email list of 25,000 people in 4 months, doing it an hour and a half a day, writing about lots of random stuff. So I'd love to share that. So yes, if you're watching, if you get one of the licenses, probably one of the stacked ones, then I'd love to produce. I'll go and I'll improve the content I've already got. I'll produce probably about another 2 hours worth of content about how to actually build content that's sticky, that sticks, that can drive millions of views from scratch.
Yeah, I will ask PitchGrounders after we end. So I will create a poll or something so they can vote.
Yeah, brilliant.
Amazing. All right, another tips. Don't write for SEO. Stop going to meetings. Train yourself to write a lot.
yeah, absolutely, guys. I think that training is the big key. That actually a lot of people make this excuse. I'm a founder. I hear it a lot. Like, I'm a founder, I have no time to write, or you spend, I've done this as well, like in 60 minutes of focused time, you can do a lot. You know, you can do a lot. Just turn everything off and be like, right, I'm going to write with no set agenda. But, and don't think, oh, what's the point of this? Because that's very, very short-term thinking. I think that for all of us, there's no reason, and I've always liked to think, whenever we get a bit frustrated, just find your reference point. Just think about Elon Musk and the fact that he's got 4 children, in a relationship, runs several billion-dollar companies. Would Elon Musk have time? So I think that that's, one of the ways that I tend to try and remind myself when I meet my own internal resistance. I'm like, you know what? I'm just making an excuse for myself. And the way that you get around that is by just training yourself to write a lot.
Interesting. All right, Deepak, Max, this was again full of golden nuggets.
Thank you. I like that.
Golden nuggets. So we've got cathedral, we've got golden nuggets. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Golden nuggets, cathedral. Yeah.
Absolutely.
A lot of stuff.
Coming to you with love. I feel so silly. Yeah, thank you, Jacob. Again, I had lots of fun, man, talking about something that I love. So, yeah, always a pleasure.
It was amazing. Guys, so let me quickly share my screen again, because, of course, there are more webbies.
More webbies, webinars.
Webbies.
Yeah.
Webbies. We are having a webbies. So another one is on Monday. WordPigeon use cases, freelance writer, blogger, affiliate marketer, and more. So you will pretty much find whatever you do, this will be for you, and you will find your use case here. Whether you're just freelance writer and you write for your clients, whether you're blogging for yourself or for your company, or you're selling something maybe on Amazon and you want to drive more traffic to your website, you need to join on Monday. But for all of you, February 11th, that's the date when you need to join, because WordPigeon will be launching. There will be a lot of pigeon humor during the webinar and on the website as well, maybe.
Maybe.
And we will show you exactly how to use WordPigeon, what exactly you can do with it, and there will be a lot of questions as usual on these launch webinars. So guys, please go to wordpigeon.pitchground.com and grab a seat right now, and we will send you all the notifications and all the fun stuff into email. So yep, that's pretty much about it today. Let me check the chat if we have something. Thank you. The webinar was great. Thank you, Deep, as well. Thank you a lot for joining.
Yeah, thank you, guys. You gave me the opportunity to talk about something that I love, so thank you. I really appreciate it. And if some of it was valuable, then great, amazing. So no, thank you guys for tuning in.
Absolutely. All right, Max, Deepak, everybody, thanks a lot for joining, and we will see you on Monday.
Okay, see you on Monday.
Bye bye.